Good day, everybody. How's it going out there? It's that time of year again. It's time to vote for your favorite furry content of 2025. It's the Ursa Majors 2025. Nominations have been put in, and it's up to you to vote before the end of this weekend. I think it's the 23rd of March. So this video came a little later this year. I think that obviously some of the people working on that thing, it's like, oh, you going to talk about this year? It's like, of course. Why wouldn't I? Obviously, as soon as I learned that it was like the voting was up by the next weekend, I had to emergency put together a video because time just sneaks up on you like that. But I also had time to look over the stuff myself and put in my own votes. So it works rather simple. You go to the link in the description there. You put in a key, and they'll give you a key to your email. Like you put in your email address, and they'll send you a key, and then you put in the key, and then you vote for the ones that you want to see win, and you then wait to see who the winner is when they announce them later this year. So obviously, this video is not just going to be here for, that. It's to kind of go over sort of an overall view of the nominees for this year and to discuss that as well. So what you would do is you would go to that link in there, and then you would put in your email, and it says send key, and then send you a key, and then up at the top there you would put in your key, and then basically you'll be sent to a vote page. It's similar to how our gaming one works, where if you're not familiar with the gaming one that we do here, you put in a number. They'll give you, it's like you could put in a number 1, number 2, and number 3, and they'll give it a certain amount of points, and whichever one has the most points at the end wins. So it's sort of an instant runoff voting kind of a thing, pseudo instant runoff voting, which is a decent style. I've criticized it in the past, but I think it works rather well as long as the audience is curated, or as long as the audience is well informed, right? Instead of like this, and we'll kind of go over this a little bit because this year, obviously, it's a popular award, so sometimes things can get a little skewed. So the interesting thing on the voting slot, it does have a disclaimer of like, and I appreciate the disclaimer on the voting thing. It says, be sure to vote for the best, the thing that you feel is best in the category, and not just your friends. And I think that's an important distinguisher to make, and I thank them for putting that in there. There's been historical things in the past where things get nominated or win that were clearly done based purely on populism and pushing for people to vote for themselves and pushing their fan base in order to do so, rather than like having it looked at everything. But obviously it's a popular award, so popular awards mean that that's part of the game. So I have to do my best to help steer the audience towards things that they would like to see, rather than telling them how to vote. And that's how I always do things. There was a situation with a person, and for those of you who don't know the history, there was a situation in the dramatic shorts where a person won it, where I felt was like they kind of gamed the system a lot. So following that situation that happened, I think about 5 years ago at this point, I basically started making a article every year that would go over the dramatic shorts section, and basically I would look at all the recommendeds and look at the stuff that I would see myself, and I would post an article that basically went over those full things. And I think that over time, that has been helpful, but also not hindering, which is an important one for this year. And I think that's a great thing, because it's like I would rather like. I don't have too many qualms about what ended up in the dramatic shorts, even though like 3 out of the 5 weren't even in the 11 that I covered in the thing, and I think that's great. Because I do think the 3 that they put in there were decent, and I don't have too many arguments against it. Other than maybe one little gripe, because I always have opinions, and opinions are great, and that's why we do these things. To go over like what 2025 brought us. Lots of good movies. The Bad Guys 2, Zootopia 2, the big 2, basically. It's going to be definitely a big fight between those two. I think the bad guys won, and I think I'm Zootopia pretty darn sure won 2016. Let me take a look. I know Zootopia won this one, yeah. So Zootopia won in 2016. Bad Guys came out in 2018? Isle of Dogs, no it didn't. 2019? Maybe it was 2017? No, okay, so 2017, I guess. That's how much I know my movies. Guardians of the Galaxy, oh yeah, maybe was it 2022? No. No. Is it? That's music. Sorry. Where's movie? Movie. Ah, the bad guys. No! They were the runners up to the runners up. Okay, that's kind of funny. All right. So no, bad guys did not win the Ursa Majors, so I was incorrect. It was the runners up. which is probably I'm kind of glad I went to look that up because that's very much a what's it called, a skit. So if you ever got to find navigate your way, you go back to the front page and go here. Like sometimes the this bar on the left is unique per website. So the most up to date one's always going to be on the front page. That's helpful for navigating, just so you're aware. Because the sidebar doesn't work with a cascading style sheet, or at least doesn't seem to have that. So like it doesn't retain itself across the different sites. As you can see here, like there's not even a link here. Like it changed that to closed. But basically, so I think obviously Zootopia 2 I think is probably going to have a one-up now that I know that they won that year and the bad guys didn't necessarily win during their year. Dogman was recently reviewed by Dronin on Flera. Elio, I think Elio's going to lose, and primarily because of what one of the persons who wrote Elio said recently on an article interview about talking about GLBT issues in a movie and why they chose not to do that. I think that's really going to hurt within this particular fandom. Its chances of whatever chances it had against these two. Good Boy is an interesting one. It's definitely one that I would want to take a look at. Like I haven't seen any movies, so I have like really no opinions of them, but I have seen the bumpers for all of them. And Good Boy is like a horror movie plus Benji. So or like Lassie or like it's a real movie, right? So it's a real film, and it looks like it's like there's an actual dog in it, and like it looks like a horror movie where the primary actor is the dog. So to me, that's absolutely fascinating because it's not a genre mix that I'm used to. Like there's a lot of pet movies, and there's been the Odyssey / adventure genre with Milo and Otis and Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, or classic pet movies. Like there's Benji / Lassie, as in like sort of drama kind of things where it's just like the pet is the main focus. Like I can't remember if like Benji is like some sort of like spy thriller or something. I can't remember what the main get up for that one was, but I remember seeing a few Benji things when I was younger, but obviously they were kind of forgettable, but obviously I know who the character is. That being said, it's like this is Good Boy thing is sort of a poltergeist / exorcist meets like that sort of pet movie, which is an interesting genre mix. So I definitely would be interested in probably seeing that at some point, along with all the other movies. But obviously, like movies to me are kind of a social thing, and I like don't like watching them on my own and critiquing them on my own, and because it's like a major time commitment and things like that. And I already have people who cover those things. From a content perspective, Cross Affliction does motion films, Drawn In does motion films. So it's like I don't need to kind of focus any attention on that. So that's why I'm not really a big, don't have much on other than that to say about it. They're all pretty interesting. I think Elo's gonna probably be the worst for sure. I don't know much about Dogman other than what Drawn In wrote about it. Dramatic short work. We did we do the whole top 11 thing. I had the article at Flera back in February that talks about my things. So the two that I covered were snow bear and bun hunting. The other three I did not cover in those articles, but all three of them are decent. Like Talon's pretty good. I never got to cover that one in the article. That being said, like Talon's got this interesting. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon dinosaur thing going, and it's decently done. I think there was a lot of, like, it wasn't in my top 11 because I thought there was a lot that the other ones brought to the table. I'll say this, when it comes to the dramatic short works of this year, there was, like, just as last year, it had improved a lot in the recommended list. There's a lot of killer and no filler. I think most things I viewed were rated higher than a 3.5, and usually 3.5 is like watchable and somewhat interesting and probably has an audience somewhere, whereas like lower than 3.5 is like there's certainly elements missing that are unpolished and make it harsh to watch, even without considering anything else. And I think Talon was in the 4s easily. Lackadaisy Last Call, also well done, but at the same time, like, to me, it felt bumpery. And what I mean, and then we're going to talk about bumpers a little bit more, but like the interesting thing and the interesting history about the Ursa Major Awards to me, and another interesting facet about the Ursa Majors, is that while it is supposed to be on paper the who's who, like this is the grandiose content of the year, this is the major content of the year, this is like the cream of the crop, the cream, yeah, macho. You know how Macho Man talks about the cream rising to the crop. The top, the cream rising to the top. At the same time, there is an element of the Ursa Majors that acts as a advertisement. And what I mean by that is that there's up and coming, like furry content creators who know what the Ursa Majors are, know how to, just like don't even strong arm their audience. Just say, hey, like there's this thing called the Ursas. Please support me there. And that support gives them sort of advertisement, which feeds into itself. Though sometimes I feel like, just so people don't fall out of relevancy, sometimes people will make small bumpers just to say, hey, we're still going. Hey, like we're advertising ourselves. We're still working on this thing. Here's a thing to kind of catch your attention, to know that we're still alive. And to me, that's exactly what Lackadaisy Last Call felt like. It was sort of a, hey, we're still alive. Hey, we're still creating this content. It was sort of an advertisement kind of thing. And, it's well animated. But at the same time, it's still not the main content. And by the way, like, I'm not against that sort of side. Like, hey, we're still alive content. But I would say, like, the year, I think last 2024's, Lackadaisy short, about the little girl, finding herself like in the gangster shop while their father's like talking about like trying to sell a car to them or something. I can't remember the entire details, but there was a story, like the daddle bribes, like the girl is being way too inquisitive about about these men and what they're doing, and like they're trying to protect her innocence by like obscuring like like that they are an accounting. I add numbers, I subtract numbers. I remember the subtract numbers joke was pretty funny. I like that because it's like it's new content. It has a story. It's short. It reminds you that they're still alive while they're working on their main project. Like it's something to add to the world as opposed to just like a song and like the thing, which I think this one's primary thing was, is like, hey, they're singing, there's a speakeasy, and it's like, yeah, we know that they're speakeasies. um, like, so to me, it's more like kind of a disappointment, but obviously like their Lackadaisy has a major fan base, and that they're, so even if they post anything, they're going to get things. But because Ursa Majors is an advertisement thing of what furries care about, like them promoting it during this thing is sort of like some weird symbiotic relationship, right? Where it's like the Lackadaisy fan base is really thirsty for like a main episode, so they will promote whatever they get during the year. To me, quite honestly, I think something could have replaced that. I think that's the weakest one of the thing. Of course, that's my opinion. Obviously, Lackadaisy's fan base will probably determine otherwise. As said in my article, Snow Bear I think is the strongest one in my opinion. I think it's strong enough where even though like I'm a bit artsy fartsy sometimes in my decisions, I think a lot of the furry fandom would agree with it, based on what I wrote in that article. So obviously go to that article at Flera to find out about more my feelings about that. So next, dramatic series. Again, I haven't seen too many. I think I've seen Hell of a Bosses because they're obviously not, they're not behind a wall, any sort of paywall or any sort of like TV series or anything like that. And I've seen the Amazing Digital Circus. I really enjoyed those. So I've seen clips of The Wonderful Weird. I've seen clips of Has Been. I've seen clips of Belford, but I've never seen them fully. So really, I think the Amazing Digital Circus is a good, strong new one, and I think that was my favorite of this year. They're anthropomorphic, but obviously that would argue it's like, is it anthropomorphic animals? And not really. It's more anthropomorphic obscurity kind of characters, other than maybe Jax. But obviously, anthro means like non-human, humanizing things that are non-human. So I think it kind of falls within it. I think Hell of a Boss, I put it number 2, and I think Belford and Lupin, I think I put it number 3, just because like I like the cut of its jib, as it were, from what I've seen of it more than like, so of the content that I've seen of it, I think I like the cut of its jib the best. Obviously, I like, once again, these are all strong contenders, and I don't really have anything negative to say anything about any of those ones. Even though in the previous sections I have said like negative things, I don't really have anything negative to say. Ironically, even though I'm a writer myself, reading fictional works has never been a big strong suit of mine. It's kind of, unfortunately, the categories that kind of fall off for me because I only have time to consume so much these days. So short fiction and literal, I like the diversity of people that I'm seeing. Like the Furry Historical Fiction Society. I've never heard of that group before. That's interesting. That might be something I want to take a look at. So again, like it works as sort of an advertisement thing, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like even I didn't. I was like, I've never heard of the Furry Historical Fiction Society. So like looking more into that might be interesting. Yeah, that's cool. It's a general. I wonder, like the wideness of the world. I guess general could be nonfiction. Yeah, okay. So nonfiction is covered by that too. I'm surprised that it didn't go into the nonfiction category. Speaking of which, the nonfiction category. Obviously, this is the genre that I am involved in. You'll notice that none of my things are nominated, which is fine. Absolutely fine. I'm glad that, it's sort of expanded in that way. Like I'm glad that like there's different like people, and like the nonfiction genre is growing to the point where, like that it's like, even though I cover Ursas and do all that stuff, like that there's enough people there that can cover that. And I'm very congratulatory to Fry Badger. I definitely did put that one on the recommended list for the Wealth Disparity. So given that, I definitely put that as one of my 3. I also put as one of my 3 the 85 years of cosplay. Last year, the 85 years of conventions by the same group won. Again, I will say this, and this is something that I'm starting to notice, and we'll go over that in a little bit. I think that TransformARTive is very supportive of the Ursas. I think they probably were familiar with them before they won last year's nonfiction, but they're definitely well aware of them now. And unfortunately, I think they might have suffocated a category similar to how what I mentioned early. Garrison happened with the dramatic shorts, and we're going to go over that when we reach the art section. But no, 85, like I really am glad, especially because like I definitely like old like people who are talking about historical things and finding primary sources and getting those things, because I typically cover more current events, but I do have historical contexts as far back as like the early 2000s for being a person who is a primary witness of those events. And remembers those events and has like ties to those events. It's important that, because obviously someday those 85 years is going to be where I joined, and I'm going to be dead old, and I will have more free time to probably cover more topics and more things, which is great, but I probably won't be working. Hopefully we'll still have a means for me to retire by that point. I think I'll be fine, luckily. Hopefully we'll all still be fine. Anyway, that being said, I think it's a very important thing, and I definitely put that in there. The remaining 3 are what I call true crime works. The furry detectives unmasking a monster. They solved a horrific crime in their community. Don't mind the colorful fursuit. And who runs the community? 5 stories about predators with powerful friends in the fandom. All 3 of these are true crime style. All 3 of them are sort of revolve around the Dog Patch Press organization, and include Patch himself in the curation of that information. So that being said, so I've picked one of the 3 obviously as my 3rd picks. So 2 of these are kind of redundant. The furry detectives unmasking a monster, and they solved a horrific crime in their community. Don't mind the colorful suit. One is basically a written cover of the other. So like this one is just a written form article of covering basically what was covered in the Unmasking a Monster. That makes it more accessible, which is great. The 5 stories about predators. Now, interestingly, like it's sort of a self-referential article. The person's covering 5 stories that they kind of covered before, about issues and things like that. True crime apparently is a very popular genre within the furry fandom. And I think it's an important genre to hold, and it's an important genre to have. And, it's important to be vigilant of curation of one's community. But also to me, it's also equally important to discuss things such as wealth disparity, such as current thing, like events, and current things such as like why are some furries really wealthy and some really not, and sort of how stereotypes can be harmful about the quote unquote suspiciously wealthy furry, which is what this one kind of covers. But also like historical things about previous elements within the community and where we came from, and so I think it's important that those things get covered as well, because vigilance is cruel, and understanding warning signs and how to look for warning signs, I think, is very important. But it's also very important to not get, to me, it's important not to get too hung up on the bad as well, because there's got to be a thing that you're in it for, and not just nobody likes dealing with these aspects, but it's important to do so, and I covered that in my previous video, with the Vanity Fair thing. So I think it's a very important thing. And Dogpatch, I think, is going to continue to cover those things, irregardless if he wins or not. But like, my hope is that, like, I think 85 Years of Con Cosplay won last time. I think they're pretty strong in that they're probably going to win this time as well. I really hope, like, for New Blood, I really hope Fry Badger actually wins as well. Like, because Fry Badger's pretty new, and I would like to see new and upcoming perspectives, and she does a pretty good job. So, and Dogpatch does a good job. He's won several awards already, mostly for his organization. And TransformARTive won one. Fry is sort of the rookie here. It'd be interesting to see who wins that one. As I said, not on it, but I mean, there's some good items there, so not too upset about that. I will do better this year. Okay. Anyways, I've noticed here also Transformer. I didn't notice this before. He's also here with Wrath of Khan. I don't know what that one is. I haven't seen any of the graphic stories, so I can't really present anything here or say anything positive or negative. Magazine, Flaira's not on here. Again, like, I don't necessarily disagree. I'm not sure what the voice of dog is. Indie Anthro seems to be some sort of musical thing. Haven't read these ones too fully. Gaming Forever, I was quite surprised at the breadth of content they had. So I really think that one's, I really, looking at how many articles they had in their site and how active it does seem that their article base is. I actually, like, I thought Gaming Forever was like a dead medium like a few years ago, but now it seems like they're really, really coming back into their own, and it's good to see. Information, they work with Flaira as sort of a syndicated sort of column, and they have like things every day, which is insane to me and crazy. Obviously retirement helps in that case, but I think it's really, it covers, like, you know, furry content mostly, and I think it's once again a very important thing, because I think, and Dogpatch Press, obviously known for their, as I said, true crimes, primarily known for their quote unquote true crime content. So I think it's going to be a fight between these two. Dogpatch is probably going to win. He won multiple times already, so they're kind of the returning champ, as it were. You know, Gaming Forever, I think, should be stronger. Information's probably going to be pretty strong. I think Information was 1-1 at one point. So Published Illustration. So let's actually skip Published Illustration for now, because that's one that's going to make me go on my rant. So I don't want to gummy up the works here too much on that. Game, we played Back to Dawn on this channel. We have not played any of the other ones. Like, I think Hollow Knight Silksong is going to be a really strong one, given its very strong popularity within gaming spaces. Donkey Kong also might be strong. I'm not sure. I think, unfortunately, Donkey Kong Bonanza is kind of, because it's on the Wii, I think it's on the Switch too. It's going to have a narrowing of the audience and accessibility. Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4, I haven't seen too many people streaming that one. I think they might have streamed a little bit when it came out, but I haven't seen, like, usually it's hard to avoid when the new chapters come out, and somehow I managed to do that this year, which makes me think that maybe it's not as strong a contender as it should be, as one would think. I think Silksong might win it. Obviously, I like Back to the Dawn. It's the only one I played. And I usually don't vote in these things if I haven't played multiple of the games, because I don't think it's fair. But in this case, I think I made a rare exception. I did vote for Back to the Dawn as my number one and didn't vote for any of the others, because I think it's like, this is a dark horse anyway, and I think that the person worked so hard on it, and it's like I didn't even, scratch the surface of the content available in that game, and I really enjoyed what I played. So I think it is worth my vote, even if, like, I have no other thing to kind of juxtapose it with and don't have any side votes. It's one of those rare cases where I think it's like, this is a strong enough work, and I agree that it should be here, and I agree that I would absolutely think it should be Ursa worthy, irregardless of me not knowing any of the other content. So like, as if I had played it if I played it and I kind of was like, I don't know, like, I would have been probably more. It's very rare that I would do that, so it was definitely a good game, and I did write a review on it. The website, it's interesting to see like informational things coming up and being a big thing. Fluffle is sort of like a reverse image search in the furry fandom. Furtrack is a sort of a fursuiter search. Fur Affinity 621 or Return to Contenders. They've been on it for time immemorial. Not much to say there other than it's cool that like these like sort of informational ones are kind of showing up. Fursuit, we did a video earlier during the nominations. Me talking about the nominations, I actually kind of went over this a little bit. Basically, the Gintan 3.0 suit. To be a little bit of a sassy person, I looked at these. They're all great suits, but Gintan 3.0 is just something I've never seen before, and like to the point where it's like I voted that one number one, and sort of like kind of like went like, that one's cute, I'll give it the 2. That one's cute, I'll give it the 3. But this one obviously was like, when I saw this in motion and saw it and think, it's like, it's definitely a fursuit that is unique. It is a style that makes it look like a VR chat avatar. But like the interesting thing is like it looks like a VR chat avatar, but it looks like its own thing as well. Like some of these look like they were based off of VR chat sort of like things. Like the bat one particularly looks like a style that I've seen, a bat style on VR chat. Like the bubblegum one looks like some avatar I've seen on VR chat. Whereas like Gintan 3.0 looks like they came like they look like a VR chat in the real world kind of thing. Like they actually look like they have that sort of like uncanny valley. Like, is this thing a animatronic? Is this like it's really cool. So I gave that one definitely the number 1 vote on that one. Music. It's good to see this category still back. I will like listen through all these ones. I obviously have strong opinions on, like, music is definitely subjective. As far as this thing goes, this first step's sort of a K-pop-ish kind of thing. Off the Leash is sort of like a weird parody of Papa the Rappa, I think, where they have like these two characters singing, but they also are singing like in a way that it sounds like it's from Papa the Rappa. They're not like actually. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. They're actually not even saying words. They sound like weird animal like. They sound like it's sort of like a mix between Papa the Rappa and like what's it called, Animal Crossing. Like it doesn't work without the video as sort of a furry thing, in my opinion. It's like a short 50-second like rap sort of thing. Ignition, very stylistic. I think I've covered Patricia Taxton's things before. It's very, very stylistic. It's not my style, but it's probably someone's style. I do think it was clever with the car sounding like things, but it does kind of get its thing. Same with There's Still Tomorrow. The interesting thing about There's Still Tomorrow was like these two are albums while these are like singles. The interesting thing about There's Still Tomorrow is like I think I've heard its lead song in like a furry meme. I think I've seen it on like a furry meme or a TikTok, and somebody had used that song on that, which is actually kind of cool because like it's like I've heard that before. I think it was on like it was used as a meme on like one of the furry content creators things, which is cool because like, and I think I think musicians in the furry fandom might be able to find, like, if they can like do something that find something that's really catchy and like can be used, and like not like forcing a meme, but because you really can't force a meme, but like having some sort of like, somebody is making a video, like a VR tuber or something is making a video and they want to try to do something. I think that would be kind of interesting. It's like, hey, like we can make this song and then I'll release this album based on like the soundtrack that I sort of made for you and just in this content and kind of introduce it that way, because I think that might be a strong way to do it. I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Obviously, I like If I Were to Die. This is actually one I did put on the recommended list for them. First Step is pretty good. It's kind of very, very K-pop. It's like very safe K-pop, in my opinion. Like, let's see. Streamer. I cannot cover streamer. I am a streamer. I'm not a very popular streamer. I know who Whiskey Dingo is, but if you were to ask me, I know who Barley the Burr is as well. So I do know those two. I've heard those two. I do know who I have an image in my brain when I see the names. The rest of them, even though I clicked on this one, I don't. Right. So unfortunately, like I abstained from voting on that one because like furry streaming is not my big thing. Though obviously Whiskey Dingo and Barley are like do short content, which I get exposed to every once in a while. Classic Anthro game. This one is gonna be a fight. This one's gonna be a fight. I chose Star Fox, Spyro, and Sonic. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who choose a lot of different things for a lot of varying different reasons. There's like 10 nominees here. Each of these are strong contenders for a reason. Other than Mappy, I don't even know what Mappy is. Maybe like I'm actually kind of curious to what Mappy is. That's the only one that I don't know by name. Rocket Knights I did enjoy quite a lot. I never played it when it first came out, but I did play it later. And I did like its sort of art style and its sort of like flowing platformer narrative, which, you know, most of the platformers are pretty segregist. But like Rocket Knight Adventures is pretty cool in that like bosses show up during the normal gameplay and it feels like a big connected world rather than just being like sort of disjointed into acts like Sonic is. Though obviously Sonic the Hedgehog 2 like is one of its strongest games for a reason. It's defined that genre. I honestly like Sonic 3 and Knuckles better. I think it was like the penultimate of that early era platformer Sonic thing, other than the barrel thing. Maybe the barrel thing. Okay, so the barrel thing, Sonic 2, because there's no barrel. Okay, that's the only thing I can give it, I guess. Everything else was better though. I fell for the barrel trap, by the way, quite hard, because it was bad. Sam and the Max hit the road. Like, so I chose Spyro, I chose Star Fox, and I chose Sonic because like I really like those games and I played them a lot. So obviously there was, you know, things I liked about them. Star Fox 64 was obviously the best Star Fox and like the definitive Star Fox, and still sort of is all these years later. So there's definitely something strong there, especially for an early N64 game. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 still holds up. Spyro the Dragon still holds up. Obviously, there's the remake recently that's, you know, still holds up even though they didn't change all that much, if anything, other than the graphics. I've never played Tail Concerto. Never played Papa the Rappa, but I'm familiar with them. Haven't played Crash Bandicoot, I'm familiar with it. Played Banjo-Kazooie. I can definitely see someone picking Banjo-Kazooie, and I would definitely fully support somebody picking Banjo-Kazooie as their number one. It was a little after my time, and it was not one that I had a lot of access to, but it's definitely like the collectathon, penultimate collectathon game. Like if you tell me, you know, if you have one collectathon game to play, what game is it? It's Banjo-Kazooie all the way, right? It defined that genre. It standardized that. It made that genre, and, you know, made it into a cohesive adventure. more so than like Mario 64, which was more segregated and seggated. Like it made it actually flowing, like the objectives flow into each other more. It was definitely like, and from a technical and sort of gameplay and impact on gameplay and the expectations of gameplay, I think Banjo-Kazooie comes out as number one. Removing any nostalgic goggles that I have, so anyone that would pick that as number one, or any like, no, definitely I like Spyro too, because Spyro came out at the same time Banjo-Kazooie did, and it kind of did the same thing. Though I like Spyro more than Banjo-Kazooie, so I'm biased. But I like the dragons more than the bear and the bird. But the bear and the bird are gonna kick my butt. Anyway, as I said, a lot of Sam & Max Hit the Road. I didn't mention that one. I did play that one on this channel. Didn't care for the gameplay. I like the duo. I like the dynamic. I like the characters. The story's a bit quirky, and that's fine. But the gameplay was too obtuse, and like it's like if I'm talking about like a point and click adventure game. And like my favorite point and click adventure game, Sam & Max is definitely not it. Sorry, it was a bit too quirky. As far as like it's a bit too obtuse on solving some of the puzzles and stuff like that. I've like flipped the man into the pan. The trap is here comes the net. Like, all right, so we covered that, but we skipped art and. We've been going for a half hour already, so go ahead, take a break, take a stretch, get your arms going, because here comes the rant, which is going to take me another probably 10 minutes. So here comes the rant, okay? One of the things, and it's obviously, the Ursa majors are what they are, and I wouldn't change what they are. I kind of, wrote articles back in the day where I would say like, oh, they got to change how they change the voting and stuff like that. And like, I kind of moved away from that because I think that if we're talking about the concept of populism and democratic voting versus informed people, right? And that debate has been going on since the Socratic method, since Greek times, since like the BC eras, and the formations of rhetoric and debate and things like that. Since time immemorial, it's like, should we make a thing that is an elite few who are picking for the dumb masses, or should the dumb masses have a free hand in everything, even despite the fact that the best outcomes might not always come forward? And that's been as I said, since time immemorial. A republic versus a democracy. That's why you have Republicans versus Democrats, right? The concept of there's an elitist few that should be making the decisions for the dumb masses versus the dumb masses should have as much say as possible in despite of what comes of it, and the loop-de-loops and how he goes. Obviously, the Ursa Majors runs in a more democratic sort of style where it's like, this is a popular contest. It's for popular things. But I think it also puts into a perspective and puts an onus on people who may have more information or may have more to say about things, and it gives a purpose for content curators, right? For people who are tastemakers or things like it. Interestingly enough, it does give room for that, and if you embrace that, it can make for a better thing. And that's the thing that I learned between when I first criticized the voting system and the scoring system of the Ursa majors versus today. If it's anything that I've learned by posting about the dramatic shorts every year, is that people really enjoy the article. People really look forward to it. There's definitely a fan base that looks forward to me. It's like, they're like, oh, are you publishing that 11, like the dramatic shorts thing that you do every year? Because I really want to see it. And it's good to know. It's like, even in spite of like, oh, it's going to be some work, but it's like knowing that people find enjoyment of that work in spite and that people are asking for it directly is great. And it gives a sense of purpose to that. And also it helps with that. But in this year, it helped with it, but it didn't override it. And I think this is one of the first years I've seen that, my quote unquote taste making article of like, here are the ones that I found, the top 11 that I found interesting, didn't hinder it because only 2 of the 5 nominees were on the 11 list. So to me, that shows, but as I said, I don't think any of the top 5 don't deserve to be there. Even though the Lackadaisy one I found kind of lackadaisy because like it's a bumper more than an actual like finished product, unlike a lot of the things that I put on my top 11. That's a minor objection compared to the objection that I had that pushed me to create. And unfortunately, in the art one this year for the nominations, I feel like I begrudgingly have to say that, again, I think we're finding ourselves in a thing where somebody is using the Ursa majors as a form of advertisement for their content rather than as a and they probably do it out of the goodness of their heart. They're probably not trying to harm things, but there's evidence of it. And I think, as I said, it's because, and if you go back to the nonfiction section, I alluded to it, because what happened here is that you could see you see the word TransformARTive there 3 times. So TransformARTive was in the nonfiction section, and they were the 85 years of this, right? 85 years of convention, 85 years of performance. And those are the ones I said, well, I definitely, that panels were good. They had good primary information, good primary sources, and they're definitely worthy of nomination in that category. And I've definitely voted for them in those categories. Now, but they're bleeding into other categories, similar to how Garrison, bled from graphic, illustrations to dramatic shorts, even though, Garrison's dramatic short was literally a still frame with music, and the still frame was just moving back and forth a little bit, and it was like 15, like 4 minutes of that, in lieu of like major like motion and like squash and stretch animation with animation things, and like, so it was like kind of an affront. And there's a whole article about that, and you can look that, and I'll probably put that in the description to discuss that. And unfortunately, I'm finding myself in a position where I feel the same way about these, because, and here's the thing, you have access to so here are the things we have. So I'm actually just gonna do something here. I'm gonna actually, since these are viewable, I'm gonna show you what all of these look like. So we're going to click on this. We're going to click on this. And so this is the art piece number 1. So this is the first nominee here. And a lot of detail to me personally. It's very busy, but it's like there's a lot of detail, right? And some people in this fandom, this is sort of like, they like the busy things, like having this like extremely lived in space, pun not intended, but still there. There's a bunch of birds in space here, and like you can like, and everywhere you look, there's like a piece of art, right? And a lot of detail, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Even though it's too busy for me, like, so it's not my number 1, like, this person put a lot of effort into that. And then you have adventure here, which is a little less busy. There's definitely good contrast, which is something that other kind of one lacked, because the other one was like a bunch of small pieces put together and is very busy. This one clearly has defined contrast. You have the silhouette of the, like, probably the main focus point of the piece, and like sort of the style, and like, but it's still very lived in. There's still so much detail of like all these little characters in the background, in the foreground. Like there's these characters that are in the foreground that aren't drawing the attention. And the fact that there's like a focal point with all this detail, like if your eyes do wander past that, like this composition, I think this was my I picked this my number 1 this year, as far as the one I voted for, but obviously you can pick however you want. because it's like there's good environment. Like it's very rare for good environment in a furry picture. Very, very rare. So the artists that can master like character composition and environment composition is extremely talented by Lofi. Among the tides, also, very good composition. This one's more single character, but very like it's water painted. It looks like it's water, and it's like this snake like character bending. It's like snake year. It's for the year of the snake. It's like this very like water bendy. Like this is very good. And then so that's the 3 non-TransformARTive nominees. And so now we're going to go over the transformative nominees. So here we got Deep Sea Fox. This is that picture. And we'll zoom in. Very clean lines. The fish character's nice. They got like a little necklace there. There's like, the valley in there. There's nice light beams. Decent art. Better than anything I could do, but that's, to me, it's not the Ursa standard. The Ursa standard is supposed to be like really, really crazy. Like, and then we got Furry Fantasy art set, or Furry Fantasy banner. This one links to his main, the Animorphs main thing, which I didn't know Animorphs was the same as that guy, but I guess it's supposed to be covering this picture where they got these banners here. And once again, like, actually, I think this is like, obviously, I think, in my opinion, this, if I were to rate between just interlocking, like, this one's, I think, better than the one, because it's got like these little details about like the little banners there, like the little computer thingy, like antlers, like the moons, so these are cool little banners. I think that's decent. That's fine. But then we got this one, which is steampunk, like, and this I don't understand at all, and this is gonna be really long way. Like, this one links to this, which, by the way, has this one in it. Like, I guess it has like the Ursa major, like they're talking about the nomination cycle. So this person clearly advertised for the Ursa majors, which is like where we're going with this a little bit, where I'm going with this. And they're like, I'm nominating this one, and I'm nominating this one. And interestingly, this is the one they chose to link to the nomination ones, but it's like, this one is part of this one. It's right here, right? So this one is a subset of this one. So just nominate this one. And I don't know. I'm sorry. And there's some people are doing good work and things like that, but like, this one shouldn't exist. Just like, I don't, like, maybe these tied numerically, but like, this is clearly a subset of this one. So just nominate that one first off. So, just have this one here, but like, if you go to one of the ones I'll share the one I really, really liked, that I kind of like nominated, that didn't make it through, because you might be going like, well, okay, maybe like, but obviously there's a difference and a delta between the quality of those ones, but maybe like, maybe it's like, it is really the best of the best. So we have the recommended list, right? So it's still up, and you can go to the visual art. One of my favorite ones that didn't make it was this one. And so like, this one, it's like, it's got good composition, like, it's not too busy, it's like, but there's a lot going on with it, and they got the chains, like, found, like, the concept and the theme of found family as a concept in the furry fandom of like, being a part of a community that, you're breaking the chains of the family that you were once with, maybe. There's a lot of stories in the furry fandom about people who, like, their primary family, they might not care so much for, but they found a family with the furry fandom that they find themselves free with, and so as a concept, it's great. So, and this is one that's not nominated, right? So this is one that was on the recommended list, and there's a lot of them that are really good. Like, there's a lot of killer, no filler amongst this, and you obviously feel free to go ahead and look at those yourself. Like, maybe, let's say, Have a Good Night. I mean, I mean, that's a really good picture. Like it's got some decent environment and stuff like that. Not as strong as like the one that I really really liked in the nominations, but like still like I think it's stronger than the fish one. I don't know, like the Banner one. I mean, you could argue either way, but it's definitely stronger than the fish one. But let's go back, and so obviously it's like, as a tastemaker, I'm going to criticize the masses when I think they did something wrong, but I'm also going to criticize the content creator because I think they did something wrong without realizing they did something wrong. And that is, I think they over advertised, not expecting to get nominated this hard. I don't think they purposefully went in thinking that they were going to get like 3 of their things nominated. I don't think that there was their intent. In fact, I don't need to go back to those, so I'll just take the thing off here. I don't think that there was any intent by TransformARTive. I think they found, it's like, hey, I got this Ursa Major award, and that's cool, and I want to support the Ursa Majors, and I do like making art myself, even though it's like there's a lot of like, it's like my art it's good. It's not like extremely good, but it's like, okay, like I have art here that I can nominate and I want to support this award. So like, hey, support my work in here. And like, but all it takes is just this is the problem, how sensitive the Ursa Majors is. All it takes is a little push of advertising, and all of a sudden you're probably a tier like 7 out of 10 work is now plummeting, like bludgeoning people who are like at a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 as a sort of an experience. Like your work is bludgeoning them because you just exposed, like you just threw your oxygen out there a little bit. And I think that's what happened with, what was it? Garrison as well. Like all it took was a little push for her audience. Like, hey, I have a bunch of fans. My bunch of fans, go vote for me in the Ursa Majors. And then she won. Even though, like, her, like, in this case, like, to me, it's like, the Transformer is like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10. So it's not like too big of a disparity, obviously. Not as much as Garrison's. Garrison was, like, in my opinion, like a 1 or 2 out of 10 animation. Like, it wasn't even an animation. It was like a still frame with music behind it. And, like, everything else was, like, a 9. So it's like, clearly it was just people voting that got that to win. But the same thing happened here. And so now it's like, do I need to do an art thing every year too? Like, is that what I'm going to have to do? Am I going to have to be a tastemaker there too? It's like, at some point, it's like, we do need to have some ground rules. And I think in this case, like, to me, very simply enough, like, I think the thing that artists and Ursas can kind of work together on a little bit, in my opinion, is basically we need to consider as a thing that our fandom has grown, and our fandom's a lot bigger than it was back in 2001. And we even had this sort of issue coming into play back then, but I think it's even more sensitive now. Our fandom is big now. It's not small anymore. And there's no reason that I need to go back to the homepage and then do that thing. I got to do that thing. Click the front page, click on the open for voting, and then here are the things. So as far as like the, what is it called? The art thing, right? So we'll use this as an example. Where is it? There it is. Published illustration. So we're using this as an example. What should have happened here is that we should limit all content here, all the content, to 1 per author. And interestingly enough, like because here's the thing, is like every single one of these other things, it's like I have no qualms. Like, well, okay, this one has 2 by the same person. So I mean, obviously that would cause a fifth one to come in to play. Like this one has all 5 unique people. This one has one overlaying. Like, but there's definitely a fifth. There's definitely other dramatic series that could fit in here. And it's like, I think that, I wouldn't say that Has Been and Helluva both don't deserve to be here, but wouldn't it be cool if I could learn about a fifth thing in here, like, or be introduced to a fifth thing in here, or go, oh yeah, I like that fifth thing by this other author. Like, why don't we? And we have 2 by Baldwin here, right? So, like, there is some dupes of people, on one particular category, right? I think we're at the point where we can limit it to 1 per, 1 per author. And because what would happen then is like, it's like, okay, we would have the Deep Sea Fox if that was the best one, or the Furry Fantasy Banner if that was the best one, and then this one would fall off. We would have the ability, like, we would have the opportunity for others to show up. Because, I mean, this was a problem even before then, and this goes into the concept of people, like, content creators using the Ursa Majors as a means of advertising their content, which is fine. It's all well and good. I mean, it's about, one part of the Ursa Majors is about introducing new content to folks. So if a popular, like, underground / popular thing gets their people, like, clamoring for the Ursas and gets them to there, all's well and good. But the fandom, and like, sometimes, like, the fans can get like, fans are fanatics. That's why they're called fans, right? That's the etymology. And fanatics are not going to make rational decisions, and they're not going to think rationally, and they're not going to, like, go, well, my over, like the TransformARTive group, this group seems to have a good founding. It seems to have, like, a good fandom behind its back that's, like, promoting their content even beyond the nonfiction space, which their nonfiction content's great. Is it as good as their art content? Not in my opinion, but, like, that people have the right to their opinion, and that if a person's going to nominate that, that's fine. But I don't think it's fair that he gets 3 slots. And honestly, it's like, even looking at the other people getting 2 slots, it's like, even if I can argue, it's like, well, Helluva Boss and Has Been Hotel both deserve to be there. Which one is more furry, or which one is more, like, pick one, pick a child and go for it, right? And then let another person come in. I think that would be fine. And Baldwin, right? Baldwin is, worked on, I think, Zootopia, and I guess is a writer. So I guess that's how they're known, and that's how they became involved in the fandom and has a fan base in the fandom. I think they would be fine with, like, having, like, okay, I'll pick one of the 2. Like, 2 of my things got nominated. Cool. I'll pick one, and then, like, the other one, like, will go to somebody else. And I think good content creators will be absolutely fine with that. In fact, I think that if you think back to the Ursa Majors and, like, if you think back to the early parts of the Ursa Majors and the situation that occurred with Kyle Gold, I think Kyle Gold would, like, if we had that rule back then, I think he wouldn't have had to have stepped down like he did. Like, he was like, oh, well, I'm not going to get involved in the Ursa Majors anymore because I've won my share of awards, and I'm, like, my works are oversaturating it, and it's not allowing other artists to be recognized, which is a part of the Ursa Majors. So, like, if there's 2 sort of masters that the Ursa Majors kind of go for, based on their sort of founding statements. Number 1, they are supposed to be the cream of the crop for the fans, and the fans want to vote for these things. So they're the things that the fandom really likes. It's the things that the people of the fandom who enjoy anthro content really want to vote for. And number 2, it's also supposed to be a means of introducing content to those fans. Because while this person might just go on the Ursa Majors to nominate Helluva Boss, they might not be aware of like the two wolf guys or the other content that's available to them, and the Ursa Major and who they're running against in the Ursa Majors as a rival might be a way to introduce them to content they might not have otherwise consumed, maybe, or maybe it's not their bag. But either way, it's like I would rather see like and going back to the published illustration, we have diversity in the three big artists. Like you have that busy picture that is like detailed and like nothing really attracts the eye, but it's like there's a bunch of art pieces that seem to have come together, and it's busy, and it's like it's detailed, and it's got a lot of stuff. And then there's one that has sort of a comprehension thing, and there's one with a mix, and like there's different styles, and like it's subjective, and like there's the different like places and emotions and that diversity. And then you look at like the Transform a Fox, and it's like, okay, there's a picture of a fox, there's some banners, there's another thing of banners. So like the diversity starts to also not be there, right? And it's not because it's not the fault of the author, it's not the fault of their fans, it's the fault of the system, because the system allows that to happen. And I think that given the talented artists that got put on the wayside from nominations based on these three slots being taken up by one person, I think that both the person who's in those slots, because I'm pretty sure they're a good person and they make good content for nonfiction and things like that, and I don't think they're here just to get awards. I think they're here to to enjoy things and hope people enjoy them in turn, and they're putting their works out there to support the Ursas as much as themselves. And I think they're a good person, I assume. So I think that they would agree that it's like I would rather see two other artists on there and one of his works on there. And same with Baldwin, right? I would rather see one of his works on there and one other person. So I think it's something they should consider going in the future. Given how big this fandom has become, having more things for more people and more content creators is better than allowing a few extremely talented people or a few extremely, marketing, like people with avid fan bases, like people who are that way. Like it gives, and that way it gives that sort of weight and balance, right? Where it's like the awards can't just be monopolized by a person who has a really strong fandom behind them, and also somebody who's extremely talented just doesn't run the board with it, because like they are a 10 out of 10 and everyone agrees they're a 10 out of 10, and like they're so much a 10 out of 10 that they can create multiple 10 out of 10 things in 1 year and like stymie out everyone else, right? Like having it limited with one thing per artist helps do that. Now obviously you can say, well, what prevents them from putting themselves under pseudonyms? Like we can't fix everything for everything, but I think this is a simple thing to fix. And it's not hard to do. There's plenty of things being nominated. There's plenty of artists, and I think that the fandom's big enough now that it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So something to consider. But what do you think about it? I've been going for 1:08. I think this is the longest video you've ever done, and this was supposed to just be Ursa nomination. So there's always a lot to talk about when it comes to these things, and I enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section about the different things. If you watch the whole thing, give yourself a cookie, because good Lord, you could have done something else with that hour. But I think it's fun. I like the Ursas and talking about them, and if you you obviously like listening to them. So, congrats, we made it another year. Well, good luck to all the nominees out there, and thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good one.